Good afternoon or morning. It's still morning where I'm at. Thanks for joining us to talk about the Guaranteed Underwriting System, also known as GUS. My name is Trish Cousins. I'm a Finance and Loan Analyst with the Lender and Partner Activities branch. I will be delivering the GUS training today, so let's get started. Rural Development uses a system called GUS, which stands for Guaranteed Underwriting System. All qualified files must be submitted through GUS. Files that are not required to be submitted through GUS are actually still started in GUS. We require that basic information is loaded into GUS per the manual submission job aid, and that documents are uploaded to the agency in GUS. We do cover this later in the presentation. It is important that all information entered into GUS is accurate and that it matches the Rural Development Form 355521 along with all other documentation submitted or maintained in your permanent loan file. Remember, garbage in, garbage out. You do not want a GUS accept recommendation based on information that you cannot support, so be sure to double check your data entry. Another really important thing to note is that GUS does not underwrite loans. It is used to evaluate the credit risk of the borrower, but GUS does not replace the judgment of an experienced underwriter. GUS incorporates a modified version of the FHA total scorecard, but does not evaluate the dependability of repayment income. We count on our lending partners to make sure that all file submissions have been reviewed by an underwriter to ensure they qualify for our program. So when a file is submitted, you are telling Rural Development that this file has been underwritten and meets Rural Development regulations as spelled out in 7 CFR 3555, Handbook 13555, and the GUS findings. The lender is responsible to review the findings and ensure that all the conditions of the findings have been or will be met. All right, gaining access to GUS. Before you begin, I do recommend that you explore all of our resources. You'll need them along the way. A useful tool to start with is the Gaining Access to GUS guide, which is available on the LINC Training and Resource Library page under the GUS tab. You'll start by completing the training required to obtain access to GUS. The LINC Training and Resource Library page has numerous tools available to our lending partners. You'll locate the required GUS training modules under the Guaranteed Underwriting System or GUS tab. Here you will also find multiple guides and helpful documents. There are multiple modules to complete in addition to what is shown on this slide. At Rural Development, we actually have two very distinctive single-family housing loan programs. The Single-Family Housing Direct Loan Program is administered directly through USDA, and they have their own website, which is the MyRD Loan Portal. If you log into the MyRD Loan Portal, then go to Login.gov, you will actually get an error that GUS is down for maintenance. The program that we are here to discuss today is the Single Family Housing Guaranteed Loan Program, and we utilize the GUS system. There are steps you will need to take to access GUS, but if you accidentally logged into the MyRD Loan Portal first, you will need to contact the GUS Help Desk to have your information removed from the MyRD Loan Portal before you can actually gain access to GUS. Okay, you will always start at the Lender Interactive Network Connection website for most things associated with administering the Single Family Housing Guaranteed Loan Program. Once there, you will select the Single Family Housing Guaranteed Rural Program that you will be utilizing. In this case, that will be the Guaranteed Underwriting System or GUS. This will also link your Login.gov ID to GUS when you first get set up. Once you have selected the Guaranteed Underwriting System, it will give you some options. You will select the customer option as seen in the middle of this slide. If the customer option is not available, like shown on the right of this slide, you'll need to change the user type. Once the user type is changed, you should see the customer option. Once you change the user type, the login options will change and customer option will be the one that you actually select. There, you will input your Login.gov information if you already have a Login.gov account set up and it's already linked to GUS. If you're a new user and you do not have a Login.gov account set up, Then at the customer login, you will click in the Login.gov option, and it will direct you to the Login.gov website to create a new account. You'll need to follow the steps to create your Login.gov account, including setting up either a non-verified level 1 or a verified level 2 access. If you have a current Login.gov account, you will utilize that instead of creating a new one. Okay, after completing the Login.gov setup, you are returned to e-authentication, where you will link your new Login.gov account to your e-authentication account if you have one. What happens next depends on whether identity verification is completed. So if you are unable to verify your identity on the Login.gov portal, you will actually be guided to do an in-person verification either at the post office or a local registration authority or LRA service center. Once the accounts are set up and linked, if you had an e-authentication account, you will receive an error message that you either have no roles in GUS or that you have no access. At this point, so you've got your Login.gov, it's all linked, you're all set up. At this point, you need to determine, are you a third-party originator or are you a direct lender? So once you determine which you are, the System Access Security Guide is a helpful document that will walk you through the next part of the process step by step. I have included a link to that guide on this slide, but let's go into it just a little bit more. Okay, as a third-party originator or a mortgage broker, once you have completed the required training, you will create or log into your Login.gov account at the Lender Interactive Network connection. This should be bookmarked and used each time for logging into GUS. As discussed in previous slides, click Guaranteed Underwriting System, choose Customer. If you do not see Customer, click the Change User Type at the top of the box window, then select Customer. Choose Login.gov, then enter your email address and password or create an account if you don't have one. Now you just follow the prompts. You may be asked to link an existing e-authentication account. To do this, you will just continue to follow the prompts. You should get access to the system if you currently have a role assigned, or you will receive a no role or no access message if no roles are assigned in GUS. If you receive the no role or no access error message, you're going to send your Login.gov email address and tax ID to the sponsoring lender. So as a third-party originator, if you get the no role or no access error message, then you send your Login.gov email address and your tax ID to the sponsoring lender. If you have an existing role in the system and an old e-authentication ID, you'll use that information rather than your Login.gov email to be added into the system. Once the sponsoring lender has your information, then the sponsoring lender will add a lender agent role in GUS for you as a user. So congratulations, at this point, you can now log into GUS with your Login.gov credentials under the sponsoring lender. Now, if you're still receiving error messages, please provide screenshots with all error messages to the GUS help desk. At that point, we can potentially step in and see what's going on. A link to the System Access and Security Guide is on this slide. And again, there are step-by-step instructions in the guide to set up your Login.gov account on pages 6 through 13. All right, so for USDA approved lenders, the process is similar to the third-party originator process, but just a little different. So once you've completed the required training, you'll create your login or you'll log into the Login.gov account at the Lender Interactive Network connection. Again, this is the one that you want to bookmark, and you're going to use this link each time you log into GUS. So as discussed in the previous slide, you click on the Guaranteed Underwriting System, choose Customer, and if you don't see Customer, click Change User Type at the top of the box window, then select Customer. Choose Login.gov and enter your email address and password or create an account if you don't have one. And again, now you just follow the prompts. You may be asked to link an existing e-authentication account, and you just continue to follow the prompts. You should get access to the system if you currently have a role assigned. If you don't have a role assigned, then you will receive the no role or no access message. If you receive the no role or no access error message, you will send your Login.gov email address to the security administrator for your company. If you have an existing role in the system with an old deauthentication ID, you will use that information rather than your Login.gov email to be added to GUS. So once you give the security administrator your Login.gov or e-authentication login, the security administrator for your company will add a representative role in GUS for you as a user. So at this point, congratulations. You can now log into GUS with your Login.gov credentials as an approved lender. Now, if you're still receiving error messages, please provide screenshots with all of the error messages to the GUS help desk and we can step in. And like I previously stated, a link to the System Access and Security Guide is on this slide as well, and there are step-by-step instructions in the guide to help you set up your Login.gov account on pages 6 through 13. Okay, remember, I said earlier, once your Login.gov is set up, if you try to log into GUS, you could potentially receive an error if you don't have roles assigned, and this is the error. If you try to log into GUS with no roles, or if your roles have been changed, then you'll receive this error. So if this pops up, then as a third-party originator, you'll reach out to the approved lender that you're working with to be assigned roles as a lender agent. As a direct lender, you'll reach out to the security administrator for your company to be assigned the representative role. All right, so what roles can be assigned in GUS? So first is the security or branch administrator. This is the only user role in GUS that is actually assigned by rural development. And they will have full authority in GUS, including assigning GUS roles for their staff and for third-party originators. Now, we do recommend that lenders have at least 2 security administrators in case one is out, has changed, or there's maybe a change in position and no longer works in GUS, or due to staff turnover. In that case, you'll want to look for another person to fill that newly vacated role, so you'll always have a minimum of 2 on hand. We've also seen an uptick in companies that either have only 1 security administrator or even none due to staffing changes. So we actually recommend that our lending partners set up a schedule to monitor staffing and roles in GUS, just to ensure all information is up to date and that you have proper staffing for all required roles in GUS. Next would be the representative with final submit authority. Typically, this would be an underwriter, a team lead, or a manager. They would import or manually input applications. They certify the loan has been underwritten, confirm data is accurate and consistent with the loan file, and perform preliminary and or final submissions. And then last is the representative or lender agent broker. Typically, this would be a processor, a loan officer, or a third-party originator. They can import or manually input applications and run preliminary submissions in GUS. Okay, now that you have access to GUS and roles assigned, how are you entering GUS? If you have saved a direct link to the GUS website, you're going to want to change that. Please bookmark the Lender Interactive Network Connection website. This will ensure you always connect directly to the most recent version of GUS. Once at the Lender Interactive Network Connection website, you will select the Guaranteed Underwriting System option. Using a direct link to GUS could land you an error that reads bad request. If you receive this, go to the Lender Interactive Network Connection website and enter GUS from there. If it's still not resolved, your next step would be to remove all cookies and all items in your cache, in your history. And then you should be able to go to the Lender Interactive Network Connection website and enter GUS from there at that point. The GUS User Guide is extremely helpful. You can find it in GUS under the User Guide tab or the LINC Training and Resource Library page under the GUS tab. It will walk you step by step through the screens in GUS. I use this document frequently when I get calls from lenders struggling to maneuver in GUS. At the home page in GUS, only branch security administrators and lender security administrators will see a Useful Links banner under the navigation bar. This pertains to the Application Authorization Security Management, or AASM, which is where they can maintain or view user roles. More information regarding setting up user roles is available in the System Access and Security Guide the Security Guide document available under the GUS tab on the LINC Training and Resource Library page. The home page is also where you would start your application. We do recommend you use either Chrome, MS Edge, or Firefox as your browser, and you need to turn off or configure it to allow pop-ups from the GUS website. GUS uses the pop-up screen to display error messages. Here you can either import your application into GUS from your loan origination system, manually input the application into GUS, and or update an existing application you have already saved in GUS. The GUS Lender User Guide gives step-by-step instructions with screenshots to help you input or import your application, and it can be found either under the GUS tab on the LINC Training and Resource Library page or under the User Guide tab in GUS. Once your application is fully input or imported, you can run GUS and it will give you one of these recommendations: accept full documentation, refer with caution. Review your findings even for a GUS accept just to see if you have received a GUS accept with full documentation review. These are files that have been randomly selected for a data integrity review. A refer or refer with caution require further review and will require a full document file submission. Be sure to review the GUS findings report and submit documentation accordingly. Utilize the attachment 15A with all submissions. Remember, files that are incomplete will be released back to the lender, put on hold, and will cause delays. Regardless of the GUS underwriting recommendation, you will upload all required documents via the GUS portal. And then lastly, you can also receive an ineligible result as well, and I do get into that a little bit further in this session. There are times when you will have a GUS accept that will be a full documentation review. This is where the system randomly selects GUS accept files for a quality assurance or data integrity review. If the file is a GUS accept with full doc review, it will always show on the findings report. So make sure even on a GUS accept, you are always reviewing your findings, especially at the final submission. I just can't say this enough. No matter the result, be sure to review your findings line by line. Something we have seen recently is existing GLS applications. If a lender receives this finding, then they must address any application in GLS, which is our guaranteed loan system, and document the file with a letter of explanation as to what happened with that loan application. So an example would be if the borrower applied with another lender and didn't choose to go with them, or they applied individually, then decided to apply with a spouse or another borrower. This just needs to be documented, like with a letter of explanation, and either kept in the lender's loan file or submitted with any manual review submissions. Community property state is another finding we see pop up. If any borrower is married and living or purchasing a home in a community property state, this finding will populate in 2 different places in your findings. If you haven't already, you'll need to pull credit for the non-purchasing spouse, and all obligations will need to be populated in the Assets and Liabilities tab in GUS. So what does a GUS accept underwriting recommendation mean anyways? Essentially, GUS has evaluated the data and determined the loan presents an acceptable level of credit risk for the single-family housing guaranteed loan program. And a GUS accept requires the least number of documents be submitted to rural development for review as well. That's what we all want, right? So a GUS accept, it requires the appraisal, all pages with color photos, the flood certification, the RD Form 355521 filled out completely and accurately, and a few additional items if applicable, such as the non-purchasing spouse credit report or a mortgage payoff for a refinance. Again, be sure that you still review the conditions, and remember, a GUS accept does not mean the file is complete. All of the lender's required conditions in the findings must be satisfied before the loan closing. So for GUS accept with full documentation, what changes? Well, you're going to need to upload a complete file for review, as the file has been flagged for quality assurance or data integrity review. You'll need to upload the following: an appraisal. Again, be sure that all the pages have uploaded and with color photos. All income and asset documentation, the flood certification, RD Form 355521 filled out completely and accurately, your income calculation sheet, either the attachment 9B or a lender's income calculation sheet if you have one, your 1003 and 1008, and then any additional items if applicable. Be sure to utilize the attachment 15A loan origination checklist to ensure you have submitted the required documents to rural development as well. All right, don't fear the refer. I heard a lender say this, and I just love that saying. A GUS refer file is not a reason to deny the loan. There are actually some great files that receive a refer or refer with caution recommendation. And the biggest thing to note is that as long as the borrower qualifies, the loan will still carry the loan note guarantee by rural development. So what a refer means is that GUS has identified some risk factors. So you just want to review the findings to determine whether the borrower qualifies for a loan with rural development, and most do, by the way. So if the refer recommendation is due to credit, a credit exception can be made by the lender. However, it is only made by the lender's underwriter. The underwriter will need to review the credit and the exception to ensure the file meets the requirements in Chapter 10 of Handbook 13555. A refer or refer with caution file is a manually underwritten loan that must be reviewed by rural development. Therefore, a full documentation package must be submitted. Remember, however, we only review the file. The lender underwrites it. Rural development does not underwrite the file. So be sure to document anything that we need to see or review. I am a huge fan of explanation letters. If you have a complicated file, we are not familiar with it like you are. Therefore, I suggest a letter of explanation to tell the story of what happened and what makes this an eligible borrower. It also helps if there is a QC review of the file at a later date. Then you can remember your exact thought process for the approval with a letter of explanation in your file. Be sure to always look at your findings report. A refer or refer with caution will generally tell what it found: low credit score, bankruptcy, delinquent debts, etc. Review the file to determine if the borrower qualifies for loan with rural development prior to the final submission. A scorecard refer finding generally means there are multiple layers for the refer: time at job, time at residence, limited credit. You're going to want to look at the entire file always. I also suggest reviewing all data entries for accuracy, and although it's not required, I recommend that you enter assets into GUS, because there are many times that the addition of assets may actually result in the GUS refer changing to a GUS accept. Just be sure to confirm, however, that the assets entered into GUS are documented assets and are in the lender's permanent loan file. This includes investment or retirement accounts such as 401k. For a refer or refer with caution, you will utilize page 2 of attachment 15A and upload the following into GUS: RD Form 355521, the request for single-family housing loan guarantee filled out completely and accurately, your income calculation sheet, either the attachment 9B or your lender's income calculation sheet if you have one, your 1003 and 1008, all income and asset documents, a credit report if there is a non-purchasing spouse and the property is located in a community property state, a verification of rent if applicable, your flood certification, the appraisal report, but remember, check all the pages to ensure they're legible and the photos are in color, not black and white, and then any additional items if applicable, including any sort of letter of explanation if you feel one's necessary. If you receive an ineligible recommendation, it could be due to the following. So for the property eligibility, you could actually receive unable to determine. This can come up with new construction or if GUS is struggling to locate the address. Be sure to look closely at the map, double check the location, because unable to determine is not the same as ineligible. If the property is not located in a rural area, it will come up as ineligible. But if you receive an unable to determine, you will likely need to just dig a little deeper because it's possible the property could be eligible. The adjusted annual household income exceeds rural development guidelines. Maybe double check your calculations. Will all the income included continue for all or part of the next 12 months? Look closely at the VOE. Have you input eligible deductions for any dependents? Or do they have any eligible daycare expenses, eligible medical expenses? Be sure to check the attachment 9A income matrix to see what is eligible and how to document it. It's maybe marked in GUS as a non-owner occupied transaction. And we can only fund owner occupied transactions. So look and see how it's marked in GUS. An acceptable SAM. If you get an ineligible SAM, the first place you want to look is, did you mark the box correctly? So really often the yes box is marked. I think to say yes, we check SAM, but the question is, has the borrower been debarred from doing business with the government? If they have not, then the no box needs to be marked. Unacceptable CAVRs would be another, or the debt to income ratio exceeds the limit set forth by rural development and the borrower does not meet the requirements to qualify for a ratio waiver. Be sure to double check your data entry into GUS to ensure your GUS underwriting recommendation is valid. GUS will generally tell you what the issue is. Just confirm you have everything incorrect, and remember, garbage in, garbage out. Currently, there are two types of loans that are not supported by GUS for final submission. One is any pilot programs, and the other is the Streamline Assist refinance loans. However, GUS is used for documentation upload on these types of files. This is to ensure the documents are uploaded securely to protect PII. Once uploaded, you do not submit these types of files for final submission in GUS. We do have a manual submission job aid located on our LINC training and resource library page under the loan origination tab. I won't walk you through the entire process, but let's just touch on it briefly. So in GUS, you will enter on the eligibility page the full property address and household income. On the borrower page, the first and last name of the primary applicant and social security number. And the last step in GUS is that you will upload all the required documentation as indicated on the attachment 15A checklist. You'll upload the required documents under the application documents page. At this point, you stop. You will not order or reissue credit in GUS, and you will not finalize the submission of the file either because the applications are not supported in GUS. So once the documents are uploaded, then you email the Origination and Processing Division, or OPD, to let them know you have manually submitted a file. You'll want to include the GUS application ID number, the applicant's name, and the property address. You'll receive a return email from OPD that will confirm the file submission date. Some helpful tips when uploading documents into GUS are: upload all required documentation prior to final submission, and be sure to double check your findings at final submission to confirm if it's a full doc review file. Missing or corrected documents may be uploaded after final submission as long as the file still shows a pending status in GUS. If we have requested additional items, be sure to notify the agency once the requested documents have been uploaded for incomplete applications. GUS does not notify rural development when documents are uploaded after the final submission has been requested. So without an email from you letting us know the missing items have been uploaded, the file will not be reviewed. Once rural development receives notification from the lender that the documents have been uploaded, the file will be processed in the order it was received. Submitting for final approval prior to uploading documents will not speed up the process. If anything, it could slow it down if we pull it before you get those documents in there. It's helpful if all the documents except the appraisal are in one file following the attachment 15A if possible. And just a reminder, the appraisal needs to include color photos. When creating a loan application, you can upload documents at any time before final submission. This may include an appraisal report, underwriting, or RD Form 3555. You'll select the Application Documents tab, select the type of document to upload, and select the Upload Files button, or utilize the Drop Files option to select a file from your system. Some tips when uploading files into GUS: acceptable file formats are Adobe PDF that are not password protected and TIFF files. Password protected documents are not permitted. Maximum file size is 100 megabytes. User must make a selection for type of document prior to adding files using the upload feature. Up to 10 individual documents can be uploaded at a time. And then you select the submit documents to attach the documents to the application for submission to USDA. After selecting the Upload Files button or utilizing the Drop Files option to select a file from your system, select the document to be uploaded. Next, select Open to start the upload process. Wait for the upload to complete and select Done when the upload is complete. Once uploaded, confirm they are all there and legible, then select the Submit Documents button. At this point, they will show up in the Submitted Document section. The eye icon allows you to view the document. The first button brings you to the first page of the results. The previous button takes you back a page. The next button moves you forward a page. And the last button takes you to the last page of the submitted documents. And just some reminders that I want to mention. You can continue to upload and submit documents even after final submission of the loan application as long as the application is in a pending status. Only PDFs and TIFF files can be uploaded, and remember they cannot be password protected. The system allows for file uploads of up to 100 megabytes for most documents, and it may take several minutes for the upload process to complete and for the documents to be viewable. At the Documents tab, you will see what documents have been uploaded and what documents are available for review. So when the conditional commitment and eventually the loan note guarantee are issued, this is where they can be found as well. I recommend checking this tab at submission to make sure all the documents have been uploaded successfully and are legible. And if it's been a while and you're wondering about the conditional commitment, I also suggest checking here before emailing rural development. Okay, when uploading files, please try to consolidate if possible. I do recommend that supporting documents are consolidated and placed in the stacking order of the attachment 15A if that's possible. Your appraisal should be the only document that is submitted as a standalone document. So here's an example. This loan had 18 files to open and review. If they are each uploaded separately, it takes extra time during the review process. There is a limit to file size, so if it's larger, you may need to break it into 2 or 3 sections or utilize the reduced file size tool in Adobe. If you break the file into smaller sections, you will want to still upload in the order that is outlined on the attachment or the 15A checklist if possible. This slide is a great example of how a file submission should look. The underwriting and the appraisal documents are submitted separately. And again, I've said this a few times, but make sure the appraisal you upload has color photos. In GUS, you may also choose to generate and display RD Form 355521, the request for the single family housing loan guarantee. You can pull this form directly from the Request Forms tab, and it will be auto-populated based on the information available in GUS. This actually ensures you have the latest and greatest revision of the RD Form 355521 and that it matches GUS. To request the RD Form 355521 form, follow these steps. Navigate to the Request Forms tab, select the borrowers to be included on the RD Form 355521, select the Display Form button, and depending on your browser, the downloaded RD Form 355521 file will be available in the Downloads folder or otherwise available for selection. And just a note, up to 5 applicants can be selected when requesting the form, and the form will print based on the information that was populated into GUS. Therefore, you want to make sure your data is accurate. The form will typically save and open as a pop-up. If the form does not open on your screen, be sure to check your browser pop-up settings and ensure pop-ups are enabled for this site. Okay, let's take a couple minutes to talk about the RD Form 355521. The RD Form 355521 is the only rural development specific form that is required on every single loan file submission. If you do not print the RD Form 355521, be sure to check the revision date in the upper left-hand corner and make sure all 4 pages have the correct date on them. As of today, the most recent revision date is 08 of 25. Be sure to verify that all the information matches GUS. This form is one that we see slow down most files if it's not correct. So a couple things I like to point out is Do not save a PDF version of this form to your computer. That could cause you to accidentally use an old version of this form with new loans. Many times the form is submitted with an old version of page 2, which would require the borrower to sign an updated version and could cause delays in your file. And then again, just make sure everything on this form matches GUS. If it doesn't, it can also cause a delay. All right, how do you complete it? Section 1, you will input the approved lender and the third-party originator name and tax ID if there is one. Make sure these are correct and that they match GUS. If there is no third-party originator, that line item is just left blank. Section 2, you're going to input the applicant and co-applicant data. Again, you can populate up to 5 applicants on the form in GUS. If there are more than 5, you'll document them on additional 355521 forms and upload it into GUS. And then Section 3 is where the lender signs the 355521 to certify that this borrower meets all agency requirements. On page 2, the applicant and any co-applicant sign to certify that they have given correct information, that they are not suspended or debarred from doing business with the federal government, that they are not able to obtain this loan with conventional credit, and acknowledge that this loan will have an annual fee. The 355521 must match GUS and any documents submitted. It is one of the biggest reasons a file is delayed or returned to the lender. So just do a review of the data before submission. Verify that everything is correct, matches GUS, as well as check the revision date to ensure that all pages are the most recent version. Okay, before we get into some of the common errors, I do want to point out that in addition to the GUS Lender User Guide, we also have a GUS File Import Guide, which is another great tool as you start learning to navigate GUS. Additionally, our GUS Help Desk is always available through email or our toll-free number and can offer great support if you need it. Some common things that would cause a validation error are listed on this slide. When you receive a validation error, double check your data and pay extra attention to the fields required for preliminary versus final submissions. If the field is required for final but not yet filled in, you'll get a validation error on the final submission. Errors must be corrected in order to successfully submit a file for final submission. Review the error, which will describe what needs to be corrected and on what page. If you are uncertain, you can always reach out to the GUS Help Desk via email. They will create a ticket and assist with guidance to correct the error. You can tell if a file is required to save, if a field is required to save the page, and if it's for preliminary or final submission by the letter or the asterisk next to the field as shown in this slide. If these items are not complete, you will not be able to advance to the next page or submit for final. Next to each entry, there will be an asterisk if it's required, and an F or P to tell you what phase of the application it's required in. Failure to complete the asterisk fields will prevent the user from advancing to the next page in the application. If you receive an XML import fail, it's a generic code, but some things to look for would be multiple dependent ages in the same field without a comma. If there are multiple dependents, each one's age must be divided with a comma. The dependent's age is listed as a month. You always want to round up. If you have months included in the age, it will fail an import. So if the child is 6 months old, you would round up to 1 year. If the child is 10 years, 9 months old, you'd round up to 11 years. Special characters in any field will cause issues. You must also always input an actual note rate. You cannot use 0.00% as the note rate. Any text in a numeric field will cause an XML import failure as well. Lastly, always import a ULAD DU MISMO 3.4 XML file. There are also character limitations to be aware of with GUS, which can cause an XML import failure. The dependent age must be listed as numeric and is limited to 2 characters. Like I said before, if the dependent is less than 1 year old, you'll round up. The MSA must be 5 characters. NA will cause an error. For all address lines, the first line is limited to 35 characters on each line and 11 characters for the unit number. The lender and or TPO tax ID number are not auto-populated and they are limited to 9 characters. Therefore, do not include the dash. The lender loan number cannot exceed 15 characters, and liability account numbers cannot exceed 30 characters. If you receive an XML import failure, review the listed error message, correct your errors in your LOS, and re-upload the corrected file. If you cannot resolve your issue, screenshot the entire list of messages because the bottom message is the most important. Send the screenshot to the GUS Help Desk. They will create a ticket and assist with guidance to correct the error. If you receive an XML import failure that you are unable to resolve by reviewing the listed items, scroll to the bottom of the page and take a screenshot of all the error messages. Send it to the help desk, like I previously stated on the last file. It's common for our help desk to receive a screenshot that does not include the entire error message. If there's more than one error message, make sure all the information is captured and send it to the help desk. This will assist them in determining the cause of the error. So as you can see on this slide, there's multiple errors. Just make sure you get it all. For schema validation errors, start by checking your character fields. A common issue is if numbers are input into a character field or characters are input into a numeric field. Make sure you're importing a ULAD MISMO 3.4 file from your LOS and work with your LOS vendor to update the export template if needed. Check for special characters that are not allowed for import as well. If character fields are correct, it could be that your loan origination software is not creating the XML file to DU specs. You'll work directly with your LOS vendor on this. A few items that can bring ineligible findings are: the property is not in an eligible rural area. Be sure to check the eligibility map. The adjusted annual household income exceeds the income limits for the area the home is located. The applicant's PITI and or total debt ratio exceed the qualifying limits, and the borrower doesn't qualify for a ratio waiver. A few more reasons you may receive ineligible findings: incorrect or invalid KVERS number. Now, KVERS is typically pulled in GUS. However, the integration has strict business hours and is not always available. If KVERS cannot be pulled in GUS, then you must manually enter a number retrieved outside of the system. I touched on this before, but if the property is showing ineligible, you should verify the property address. You can do this at USPS.com. Look for street name, spelling, street direction like northeast, southeast, west, etc. Street type like loop, circle, place, and make sure your city, state, and zip are correct. I cover this a little bit more on the next slide. Finally, another error would be an incorrect SAM response. This can cause an ineligible finding as well. You can check property and income eligibility outside of GUS before getting started with a new loan file on the eligibility tab. The link on this slide will direct you to our program's eligibility site, which provides an easy resource to determine site eligibility. This is a great link to keep bookmarked, as it's also the place to go to determine your applicant's income qualifications. You'll need to click on the Single Family Housing Guaranteed tab towards the top of the page and click Accept on the property eligibility disclaimer that appears when you arrive at the property eligibility page. Once there, you can enter a specific address to see if the home is located in an eligible area, or you can simply zoom in and explore the map and determine any eligible areas prior to sending a borrower out to shop for homes. The peach-colored segments on the map indicate areas where the Guaranteed Loan Program cannot be utilized. Those are considered urban areas by our program. I do recommend that if you have to locate the property manually, be sure to pin the location using the TAC icon and include a copy of your property eligibility map with your file submission. In some cases, such as new construction, the address may not yet be recognized in our system. When this happens, you can find the property location on the map by zooming in over the state and area in which the property is located. It might be helpful to compare our system map with a Google map or other maps that you have access to for reference points to assist you in manually locating the property. If it's an existing property, you can double check the address again at USPS.com for accuracy. And if our system is still struggling to locate the existing property, if it's got like a suffix like street, circle, court, you can remove the suffix and it might locate it, but you want to be sure to double check that when it pulls up the property that it's actually included the correct suffix when it locates it. When you receive the unable to determine result on your findings, GUS will continue to say unable to determine for the property through the submission process. Please submit the map that you use to manually confirm the property is in an eligible area to the agency with your file submission. The agency will actually resolve this finding on our end after submission once we confirm the property's in an eligible area. And then please note that the eligibility site only determines if the home is located within an eligible area. It does not determine if the home itself is acceptable. Be sure to fill out the SAM information on the Additional Data tab. If there are no SAM findings, you mark the box No to indicate that the borrower has not been debarred from business with the federal government. In previous versions of GUS, this was different. So it's really important that as you are inputting your file, you take the time to read each question to make sure you answer correctly, because if yes is marked, you will get an ineligible response. How can you resolve some ineligible findings? Verify the property address falls within an eligible rural area. Review your SAM and CAVers. Confirm your entry is correct in GUS. Verify the results are correct with your borrower. Ineligible CAVers or a borrower that is debarred from doing business with the federal government are not eligible for the program. So confirm that everything's correct. Revisit the annual and the adjusted annual household income. Verify if they're eligible for any deductions or if the income will continue for the ensuing 12 months. Is the income calculated correctly? Double check ratios. Are all debts that are included valid, still open? Does the borrower have any additional income? Do they have any funds to pay off the debt? The lender must pull the credit report using the Fannie Mae interface on the Credit Underwriting tab by using the reference number, username, and password. This is the same username and password you would use to log into the creditor's site. You will input liabilities in your LOS and then import the XML file with liabilities into GUS. When credit is updated in GUS, liabilities can be manually updated in GUS, or an updated XML import will overwrite existing data. The validate application function can be used just prior to preliminary or final submission. It will show you any errors on each page as you go through the application process. Once the updates are made, be sure to close the validation tab because it opens a new tab each time you validate the application. Running validate application proactively prevents submission failures and saves time by catching errors before they reach USDA. Examples of errors would be missing date of birth, or the date of birth is entered incorrectly, missing a credit report, income not input, or it's input incorrectly, or the PITI ratio is incorrect. Next to the blue icon, it shows the page or tab where the error is located, if it's for preliminary or final submission, and a short description of the error. You'll need to correct all validation errors before attempting submission. Submitting with errors will result in a failed transaction. Credit report failure messages are directly from Fannie Mae. These are not GUS messages. If the service is down, the generic message will display, contact the help desk. Please include a screenshot print of the error message. Otherwise, Fannie Mae will return this specific error with the request. Users should check data inputs such as the credit report reference number, the credit vendor account number, and or the credit vendor password. Check the borrower's name, your social security number, the borrower's address, and confirm there are no errors. If no errors are found, then we recommend reaching out to the credit vendor to resolve this before you contact the GUS help desk. As a last resort, contact the GUS help desk with a screen print of the error message. Again, the account number and password are the same as you would use on your credit vendor's website. Updates to an existing application are permitted in GUS using the file import feature. This is a time-saving tool that was actually implemented about 4 years ago. The feature allows users to update information in GUS without manually keying in each change, eliminating duplicate data entry and frequency of errors. The lender must ensure the lender loan number recorded in their loan origination system matches the lender loan number on the existing application in GUS prior to updating an existing application via file import. Due to IR or intelligent replacement, the proprietary USDA data that exists in the system will not be overwritten during a file import update. This is because the data does not exist in the XML file, and we didn't want users to have to manually key in the USDA data more than one time. When contacting the GUS Help Desk, make sure you include the lender and third-party originator name, if there is one, a screenshot of the error message or messages, please include them all, full name of the user that is having the issues, the GUS application ID, if one has been created. For file import failures, also include the date and time of the attempted file import. And I want to just point out, just to let you know, as a courtesy kind of, multiple emails and calls to us can cause, delays in response time because we're surfing through the same email over and over. Therefore, we just request that you limit calls and emails to just one. We will respond within 24 hours or less typically, I promise. All right, so let's wrap this up with some useful tools. I've listed some essential references on this slide, but we will go through a few others. Here you can find a direct link to our handbook and our Code of Federal Regulations. The link is included on the slide to get to the Single Family Housing Guaranteed Loan Program screen, and then you would go to other requirements. Be sure to open Handbook 13555, the Single Family Housing Guaranteed Program Technical Handbook. If you look at this slide, you can see Handbook 3550. That is actually for our direct program, and it has significantly different guidance. So make sure that when you look at the handbook, it's the 3555. Sorry. This is one of my favorite documents. You can find it under the Loan Origination tab on the LINC Training and Resource Library page. The FAQ, Frequently Asked Questions document, is a living document, meaning we update it regularly. It opens in a PDF format, so you can hit Control F and search for specific topic or keywords. I swear I refer to this at least 3 to 4 times a week or more. Our policy team keeps this updated, and it's updated based on like questions that come in or common things that we see regularly. So this is a great document to reference if you have a question. The LINC Training and Resource Library page is a definite bookmark. You can get to the handbook from here. We have oodles of training available. Our contact information is on this site. And under the Loan Origination tab, we have a lot of resources. You can also scroll to the bottom and see all the Gov delivery notices. And if you haven't already, you can sign up to receive our Gov delivery notices on this site. We're also excited that we have our live training schedule posted on the LINC Training and Resource Library page, so you can see upcoming trainings and sign up when the link goes live. So if you haven't checked that out, I would really encourage you to do so. I said before, but be sure to subscribe to receive our Gov delivery notices. This will keep you up to date on program changes, upcoming trainings, and anything else rural development. Lenders should first look for answers to their questions in the regulations and the handbook and the FAQ. But if you still have a question after reviewing your resources, we're here to help. All policy and regulation questions, as well as loan scenario questions, should be sent to our Policy Analysis and Communication branch. Questions regarding a specific file would be sent to the Origination and Processing Division. And then if you would like to request additional program training for your team, then you would contact our Lender and Partner Activities branch. And that's it. I want to say thank you for taking time out for this training and just tell you to have a great day. We look forward to just continuing working with everyone. Thank you.